Okay, I think we are live. How is everybody doing? Apologies that I wasn't here last week. And we can go ahead and get started. So let me just tweet this out. And if you guys can give this a thumbs up, that does help the show and helps us helps us get ready. I'll just take this off because I might as well. All right. Let's post this one more time. All right. Apologies, I wasn't here last week. I may be here next week. I'm not entirely sure with Thanksgiving and everything going on, but I should be here the rest of the season after next week. So this works very similarly to every other week that we've done this. We will go for about an hour, or as long as we have questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I will answer anything that comes up. Primarily focused on DFS, DraftKings, FanDuel for those that aren't familiar, and we will go from there. So the show is not. I don't have anything planned. It's entirely up to you guys how long we go. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask them, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Family's doing well. We don't have. We're having a second one on Monday, I believe. So not here yet, but should be here any day. In PPR, who best flex from Gus, Brian Robinson, Najee, or Warren? Let me pull it up. It's not going to be Warren. He just hasn't. I like him as a player, but he hasn't done enough for me to trust him just yet. So if I look at this, I'm probably thinking probably Najee. Close. Okay, it's really close between Brian Robinson or Najee Harris. I would probably go. I would probably go Najee. Oh, that one's tough. I really don't like Najee Harris. Give me Brian Robinson against Houston. Better. DJ Reader is back for Cincinnati, which should be a pretty significant upgrade for Cincinnati. So let's do that. Any thoughts on Cordero Patterson cash? Not really. Look, I think the matchup's good going up against the Bears, but the reality is, like, Cordero Patterson he's going to be so touchdown dependent where his price it's okay. It's 6,700, but I would rather go Devin Singletary against the Browns or David Montgomery against the Falcons. Is Najee a good pick in cash? Probably not. I mean, let me just double check his price. But I just never get myself to play Najee Harris, to be honest. Like I said, DJ Reader is back. 5,500, so I understand why you might like him. Good price. However, in that range, you can very easily start Devin Singletary at 5,800, Antonio Gibson at 5,600. I think are both better plays. It's not really anyone below Najee, so 55 is sort of like the lowest that I guess Brian Robinson at 53 I would rather go than Najee. Very slight, but I probably would rather do that. But I'm really looking in cash on DraftKings at guys like Montgomery, Singletary, Dameon Pierce, Ramondre Stevenson, that price range. I think that's where most people are going to go. Any thoughts on playing tight end flex? No. Tight end's really bad this week. I don't want to play one, let alone two. I think there's some wide receivers that you could certainly look at. that are somewhat cheap. So guys like, if I look at the Rams, right? How are the Rams gonna play without Cooper Kupp? And it's gonna be either Ben Skoranek or Van Jefferson, both who are pretty cheap. Jefferson, I guess, is a little more expensive at 4,500, but Skoranek is under 4K. Trying to find some other guys. Kendall Hinton, I think, is interesting for Denver. I would rather play him over a tight end if you had to go down that route. But I'm really not going. Or Nico Collins, I suppose, is fine at 4,100. But there's not. I mean, I look at the mid-3 range for tight ends, and it's pretty bleak, right? So Greg Dulcich, Tyler Higbee, Hayden Hurst. None of those guys. I mean, you're hoping for like 4 for 40 for all those guys. Best value DraftKings cash. Value is interesting this week. Like, it's not. There are none. Antonio Gibson is probably the best. Devin Singletary is certainly up there against the Browns. And Montgomery and Dameon Pierce are the 4 that are value. But value is sort of out the window this year because we don't have the low 5K guys. There's just not those injuries that are driving the backup running back to get playing time, to be honest. So that it's sort of dry. Part of it is like they're changing their pricing model. One, they are meaning more players are above 5K, more players are above 6K. They're moving everybody up, making it more difficult. Two, there's just not those injuries that we typically rely on that says, hey, these 3 running backs are injured, and here are their fill-in spots. We may get 1 a week, like we saw with Deion Jackson for the Colts. But like last year, we had games where Nick Chubb missed and Kareem Hunt got the start, or David Montgomery missed multiple weeks, and Khalil Herbert stepped in and became a must-play value guy. So we're just not getting that this year. How do I feel about Denver's wide receivers? Yeah, it's interesting. I like Denver as a team. Cortland Sutton had 11 targets last week, so certainly interested there. I mentioned Kendall Hinton. If he plays, he is questionable, but if he plays, he had 4 for 60 or 4 for 70 last week. He's really the only other guy that they got, right? With no Jerry Jeudy, no KJ Hamler. So like those 2, maybe there's a third that I'm missing. But if Russell Wilson is ever going to have a great game this season, just looking at the rest of the schedule, this is it. Las Vegas has given up the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, I believe. Let me confirm that. Second most, only behind Detroit. So second most there. They don't play Detroit. It's the best matchup that they'll have. He had a good game earlier this season against Las Vegas, so it's certainly possible, but that's the route I would go. Half-point PPR, Pollard or Zeke. Give me Tony Pollard. We just don't know how healthy Zeke is, right? So if you're trying to predict this thing, Zeke, if he's healthy, at best he's getting 55 to 60% of the touches, like at best. At worst, he's getting 20%. And how healthy he'll be, I just don't know. Thoughts on Lamar and T. Higgins? I don't have either of them in my lineup. The 3 guys that I'm looking at are in cash on FanDuel or Josh Allen, Justin Fields, or Russell Wilson. And at wide receiver, I prefer, this may come back to bite me, but I do prefer Cortland Sutton slightly ahead of T. Higgins. Now, that could be completely crazy, but we just haven't seen Higgins step up without Jamar Chase. So is he and he's $600 more expensive. So I prefer. I mean, CeeDee Lamb I like quite a bit at 8,100. Devontae Adams obviously at 85. Are guys that I really like in cash this week. Sutton at 7. Garrett Wilson at 62. Amon-Ra St. Brown is okay. The lack of touchdowns concerns me. But Higgins, I just don't know. Like he has upside, obviously, but without Chase, is he the guy? Is he a type of receiver that is that better complementary than primary? I don't know. Pick two of these three: DJ Moore, Foreman, or Pickens. You're finding it hard to trust DJ Moore. I think they're going to have to go to DJ Moore more. But the question is, in PPR, the problem with Deontay Foreman, and I said it, I think 2 weeks ago, and someone got really mad at me. Deontay Foreman doesn't catch passes. He's never caught passes. He's caught 4 passes all season. He's caught 22 passes in 36 games throughout his career. So in PPR, that really hurts, obviously. It means he needs 10 yards for every catch DJ Moore gets. So I'm taking the two receivers this week. Why is there so much love for Montgomery? He's cheap and there's no Khalil Herbert. If he gets 16, 17 carries, like he's in a really good spot, and the matchup is pretty good against Atlanta. They're giving up 4, 5, 6, 10th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, and Deontay Foreman has run for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns and 130 yards and a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 weeks against this Atlanta defense. And DK Cash is the lowest price guy that I'd be willing to roll with. I need a position here. Like, I could just be, I'll just be a little bit of a prick and say a defense at 2K. Like, give me the tech. Cheapest I'd be willing to go. All right, we are back. I'm very, very sorry. I hate Xfinity with all my heart. Just make sure we're still live. Yeah, we're still live. Okay. Thank you for those that are still here. Hopefully everyone can hear me. And if you can hear me, please, sit Xfinity in week 11. The only times it actually goes out is during this show, which has been very frustrating. Okay. Did it go out again? I swear to God. No. Thanks, Michael. I will be back in probably not next week, but probably the week after. Thoughts on Brian Robinson? John, I've mentioned who I'm playing, and Brian Robinson's not in there. Gotcha. Okay. That's much easier to for FanDuel or for DraftKings cash. Who's the cheapest quarterback that you're willing to go to? I think Russell Wilson is fine. I think Daniel Jones is okay. I could go down to, if you're desperate, you could go down to, let's say you have a perfect lineup and you have 5,300 left against Houston. I'll roll with Taylor Heineke. I don't love it. I mean, I would much rather prefer to pay up for a quarterback who's more expensive, but I get this week is hard, and there may be wide receivers or running backs you have to have in your lineup. Am I willing to stack Gibson and Robinson in a GPP? It'll be unique. So if they both, I mean, the problem is it's not like the problem with doing that is you can't take the collective total of the two and say, hey, I got, let's say Gibson goes off and Robinson's just okay. They both sort of need to go off. Like in a cash game setting, you can say, hey, I got, I don't know, 3.5x on the price. And, it ended up working out. But the problem is in a GPP, you're going to have people who take one or the other, and then you'll be behind because one of those went off. So it's not impossible. Three rushing touchdowns, and two of them are Gibson, and one of them is Robinson. You're in a really good spot, but they'll probably be 50-50, Kurt. Like that's what they're saying, right? I don't see any reason why they need to go like 100% to CMC. Maybe it'll be like 60-40 CMC, but I don't see Mitchell's a more than adequate back to run that offense. Is Jefferson a good play? He's a good play every week. Every week. He should be in consideration. Robinson carried the rock 26 times against the Eagles. I don't understand the question, Rob. I mean, Brian Robinson's a completely okay play. If you want to play him, play him. Like that's more than acceptable. Robinson had more of a role. I think it was because Antonio Gibson got a little banged up in the game. So is that a predictor of how the role is going to happen going forward? Not necessarily. I think that it's a true split. But if I look at receiving, Brian Robinson is probably the worst receiver and worst pass protector. So if they get behind, will it be Gibson? Probably. But they're both deciding between the two is very hard. Yeah, John, I have the best Wi-Fi that you can possibly buy. Just frustrating. Frustrating that you pay as much as you do for what's supposed to be 1.2 gigabytes per second, and it's certainly not. Is Latavius a sneaky play versus the Raiders? No, I mean, I sort of, I don't know what to think of that backfield. I mean, part of me has been looking at Melvin Gordon this week and saying, okay, if this game shoots out, who's the running back who's more likely to see time? But then, like, I went down that rabbit hole and determined that, like, neither of them are all that exciting, just because, like, if they both have 10 carries, it's going to be really hard to meet value. Yeah, if he's still out there, stash Keontae Ingram. I don't think he's going to be out there for very many people, but if he is, go for it. Stafford or Mayfield? Stafford. I'm never playing Baker Mayfield as a Browns fan. Pick 2 out of Gordon, Foreman, Johnson, D. Johnson. Please tell me that's not David Johnson. And it's Deontay. Yeah, it has to be Deontay Johnson. I know David Johnson was signed to someone's practice squad, but I'm behind and wasn't sure if I missed something. Let's go Deontay Johnson, and you need the most upside. Most upside. Either Gordon or Foreman. Melvin Gordon. The reason I say that, upside could be because Latavius Murray gets hurt and he can catch passes. So Connor Evans, I don't know, Bryce. I can't do the rest of the season stuff. Like, why do we need to know the rest of the season? Are you trading one of these guys? Trading for one of these guys? There's so much. I mean, 2 of those guys get hurt tomorrow, right? So I can't answer a rest of the season question. I just don't know why. What does it matter? Choose 2 of MVS, Gallup, or London. Oh boy. I like Michael Gallup quite a bit this week. I know the projections don't really like pop, but for Gallup, like CeeDee Lamb is fantastic, but Minnesota allows the most fantasy point or most. Hold on, let me get my facts straight here. I know their pass defense is really bad, but let me just make sure I'm giving the right stats here. They give up the 3rd most passing yards per game. Atlanta, Tennessee, Minnesota. So I think this game's a sneaky shootout. I think that this game is a this game is one that really could pop. So Gallup for sure, and then Drake London or Marcus Valdes-Scantling. Is Juju playing? Do we know? Is Juju Smith-Schuster playing? It looks like he's out. So, yeah, let's go MVS. MVS and Gallup. Who would be your core in a 100-man single-entry tournament? I would go with Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Adams. Swift, Brian Robinson, Connor, or Pacheco. PPR, because it does make a difference. So if we could, I'll answer this one assuming it's PPR. Connor. James Conner for sure. And then it comes down to Swift or Brian Robinson. I'm taking a shot on Brian Robinson. I mean, DeAndre Swift, I just don't know, right? Because there's still Jamal Williams is still there. Swift has 6 carries, 2 carries, and 5 carries, and I would hate for him to, get 6 carries this week and you're sort of stuck. So, Keontae Ingram, Jarvis, just block at any given time. Is there any point to paying over $5K for a tight end on FanDuel Cash? Yeah, sure, certainly. I think that there's like 3 guys between 52 and 5,500 that are much better than the guys at 44 to 5K. Like the best guy sub 5K is, I was looking at it this morning. Was it Jack Stoll? Like there's nothing under that amount. Hunter Henry, there's just nothing there. It's a complete wasteland. So if you want to punt it. But guys like Hayden Hurst, Pat Fryermuth, Greg Dulcich, if you're going to punt it, go with Jack Stoll and save $1,000. Don't go with like a guy who's 48 or 4,900 because the difference between him and a Tyler Conklin or a Hayden Hurst is pretty significant. You could certainly do that. There's plenty of people that do that. Target just like a handful of games and the players only from those games and just say, hey, I hope the other games are under. I think that's completely fine. Bryce, I'm happy to answer the rest of the season questions. I just don't know what the rationale or purpose is. So if you want to provide that, I'm happy to answer the question. I just don't know like how I'm even thinking about comparing James Conner versus Mike Evans for 8 more weeks. Allen and Montgomery or Fields Singletary? This one's hard because, it's hard because Fields is going to be very binary. Do we really expect him to rush for 150 yards again? Maybe. Like it's hard for me to say, hey, a quarterback is going to come out and run for 100 plus yards. There's no model no statistical model that would say that that's likely. But what he's doing is not on the spectrum of normal. So do I like Singletary above Montgomery? Very, very slightly. I think I have them almost the same. I have both in my cash game lineup right now, along with Josh Allen. And I think that this is a game, if it was in Buffalo, I would probably avoid it. But it's in a dome. And Josh Allen has run for 80 yards or more in each of his last 2 games. Cleveland has one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. And that's coming from a Browns fan. I mean, what Miami did last week on the ground, they ran for, 280 yards or something is what their running backs had rushing in, passing, or rushing in, receiving. It's bad. And their linebackers are really bad, and their defensive tackles are really bad. So I could see a scenario where, hey, he has Myles Garrett coming off one side, and he just runs because they can't stop him. So I have Josh Allen ahead of Justin Fields. I do like Justin Fields. I just think the floor of Justin Fields, if they would it surprise anyone if Atlanta said, you know what, we're putting 2 guys as just spies on Justin Fields. We'll go one-on-one in it with everybody else, and we are not going to let him run for 150 yards, period. Will that prevent him from running for 150 yards? Maybe, maybe not. But will it certainly hurt him from a fantasy perspective? Absolutely. Is it fine to play Fields and Montgomery in the same cash lineup? Yeah, sure. Sure. Same for cash? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could do it in the GPP. Like, you could. It's much harder. Much harder to do. Much harder to win. But the Bears score 35 points and you're in a really good spot. Brian Robinson, Bryce. Yeah, and I think you're talking about why your rest of the season here. It's a week by week thing for everything. I mean, for me to come back and say, hey, Mike Evans versus James Conner, you should put this guy in and then go on a 6-week vacation and not check your lineup, or just make sure that because Devin Knott said here in week 11 to play Mike Evans the rest of the season, that's who you have to play. No, it doesn't work that way. So it's a week by week decision, right? So if Chris Godwin gets hurt, well, that helps Mike Evans. Or if Kyler Murray gets hurt, or if Kyler Murray becomes addicted to the new Call of Duty game, then James Conner's going to go down. And I say that facetiously, but it's happened before. Favorite running backs, DraftKings cash. I've said it a couple times, but Devin Singletary, Dameon Pierce, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson. If you don't like Gibson, you could go Brian Robinson to save it some additional salary. If you want to pay up, or you can pay up, I think Saquon is in a really good spot. Obviously, it's almost impossible to play him, but if you go cheap at quarterback, it's certainly possible. Jeff Wilson's a good pickup the rest of the way. Yes. Log off here and go pick up Jeff Wilson, and then come back when you tell me you want a league championship. I question what league you're in that Jeff Wilson is available, but I digress. Would I fade Jefferson for Thielen or Hawkinson due to the pass rush? No. The only reason you would do that is because Justin Jefferson is going to be really popular, right? Justin Jefferson's matchup proof. He's arguably the best wide receiver in football. I would say it's him and Cooper Kupp. And that's it. Devontae Adams is probably in the second tier. Stephon Diggs is in the second tier. Probably missing one more, and then guys like AJ Brown and and Devontae Adams. Did I say Adams is in the second tier? I did. Third tier would be AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, that group. How do I think Damien Harris will cut into Stevenson's production? A little bit, but like the last time Damien Harris was active was October 30th against the Jets. But even before that, he had 11 carries, 3 carries, and 4 carries. So, Stevenson still had 23 touches in that game against the Jets. Stevenson had 23, 19, and 23, 19, and 19 carries or touches. So I think he's fine. I mean, he's still going to get close to 20 touches and be the top guy there. Njoku, Higbee, Moreau, Johnson. And Njoku was the number 3 tight end before going out and getting injured. And for him to be back this quickly in a matchup that they really, I mean, their season is done if they don't win this game. I know they're probably not going to, but David Njoku is a big part of that offense. Yeah, Baker and Taysom Hill are both 5K as quarterbacks. Yeah, Baker's pretty bad. Any 5K or sub 4K, 4K guys. Kendall Hinton is probably the only guy. Ben Skoranek is pretty bad, or he's okay. Yeah. Maybe not. If anyone works for Xfinity, I swear to God, I hate them. I'm going to wrap up. I'll answer one more question, but yeah, Kendall Hinton is really the only guy. I mean, Ben Skoranek is probably there too, but there's not much to like sub 4K. But see if there's anybody else that I just can't tolerate. Allen versus really nothing, and that's probably a good thing because if they made it easy, then everyone would play those guys. So I'm gonna cut this. I do apologize. I can't do it not like this with that. I need to try and figure it out. I go through some. So I'm trying to show next week, but I'll try and do something and I'll post it out. And then if you have any additional questions, I can not be talk more. Okay. All right, everybody.